organism we are going to discuss, that's lichen. Now, we have been discussing so far R.H. Whittaker's classification, right? And in R.H. Whittaker's classification, you very well know there are 5 kingdoms. Kingdom Monera, then Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. But do you know there are some organisms which have not been classified at all under R.H. Whittaker's classification. They were not given any place under the classification model. So they remain unclassified. And these organisms which could not be classified by R.H. Whittaker were lichens, virus, viroids, and of course prions. These are few members which could not be placed by R.H. Whittaker's classification. So what were they? Lichens, virus, viroids and prions. Okay, so now we are finally going to discuss, like, R.H. Whittaker's classification is complete up till this, up till kingdom Animalia, the introduction that I have given. Up till this, R.H. Whittaker's classification we have discussed. Now finally we are moving on to certain kind of organisms which are not included in that classification, and we begin with an extraordinary and a very peculiar organism, that's lichen. So let's see what lichen is all about. Alright. Now first of all, lichens are symbiotic association between fungi and algae. Of course, if you look at a lichen, you can never ever understand that it's not one organism but two. Okay, that's how beautifully it has been properly formed. But then actually lichen is a symbiotic association between an algae and a fungi. Of course, artificially you cannot form a lichen. You cannot just bring an algae, and you cannot just bring a fungi and try to intermingle them and form a lichen artificially. No, they are naturally formed entities and they cannot be artificially formed. Okay, now, so lichens are symbiotic association, means they are associations in which an algae and a fungi would remain together. Okay, they would remain together, but also not only they will remain together, they will also be mutually benefiting each other. That's why symbiotic association, an association where both the partners are equally benefited from one another. So what's the benefit? You know very well, algae being plant, it's autotrophic. So of course algae will be preparing food for the fungi, because fungi are after all heterotrophic, isn't it? So that's why algae will prepare food for the fungi, and fungi in return would provide shelter, protection, and also it will be absorbing minerals and water and give it to the algae. Okay, using those mineral and water and all, algae will finally photosynthesize, and the prepared ready-made food will be provided to the fungi by the algae. So isn't it a very beautiful association where both the partners are equally dependent on one another? If one is removed, the other will also not be able to survive. Okay, so algae prepares food for the fungi, and the fungi will be providing shelter, protection, and will also be absorbing minerals and water for the algae. Alright, that's why it's a symbiotic association. Do remember, lichens are thalloid organism, and in the lichen thallus only 5% will be algae, 95% will be fungi. Okay, so in a lichen thallus mostly it will be fungi present, but only a little bit portion will be inhabited by the algae. Alright, now the algal component is called phycobiont, and fungal component is called mycobiont. Okay, algal component is called phycobiont and fungal component as mycobiont. Alright, now phycobiont is mostly green algae or blue-green algae, that means cyanobacteria, whereas for the fungal component it's mostly going to be Ascomycetes or Basidiomycetes. Alright, now they can grow in very harsh habitats, because lichens, as you know, they are the first to grow in any rocky surface. Okay, that's why they can withstand very high or extreme desiccation, drying. Okay, they can survive in very harsh habitats, and almost every type of habitat they can start growing. Okay, so they can start growing almost everywhere, somewhere where no organisms have ever existed. In such a place also, lichens can be the first to grow. So that much of desiccation or that much of extreme harsh habitats they can survive in. Now, the growth rate of lichen is very slow. This is a very important thing about lichen you should know. Sometimes in true or false questions, if suppose a statement is given, lichens grow very rapidly. Of course, you should be knowing that that's a false statement. So even minute details may, help you gain mark, or sometimes not knowing these simple minute things might lose marks for you. Okay. Now, lichens cannot tolerate air pollution, that is sulfur dioxide pollution to be specific, and hence they are good pollution indicators. How are these two things related? They cannot survive air pollution, mostly sulfur dioxide pollution, and that's why they are pollution indicators. How is that going to make a sense? That's because if suppose in your locality you suddenly see that lichens population has started to decrease, that would signify that in your locality sulfur dioxide pollution has started. That's why lichens population have started to diminish. That's how they would be indicating pollution. Alright. Now, in lichens, the algae prepares food for the fungi, whereas fungi provide shelter and absorbs minerals and water for the algae. This I have already told you about. So I hope the general characteristics of lichen are clear to you. Now let's move on to structure of lichen. Now, as per external morphology of lichens, lichens can be of three types. First, crustose lichen. They are very plain, simple and crust-like. They will be completely suppressed within the soil or within the substratum. Okay, so that's why crust-like. Example would be Graphis and Lecanora. Foliose lichen would be attached to the substratum at one point and will be leaf-like. It is as if a leaf is attached to the soil. Okay, a little bit elevation it would be showing. Okay, in its thallus, and it will be leaf-like. So example would be Parmelia and Peltigera. Last is fructicose. It is the most elaborate form of lichen and it would be bushy in nature. As you can see, it's branched and bushy in nature, and it will show some fungal fructifications. Alright. So examples would be Usnea, Cladonia, etc. Alright. Last, reproduction. Reproduction in lichens can also be occurring by various means, the most common being fragmentation. Sometimes the lichen thallus might break down into small fragments. Those fragments which will possess both algae and fungi. Both the partners if present in a fragment, and that fragment if falls onto a suitable substratum will give rise to a new lichen thallus. So that's how by fragmentation the lichen, lichens can of course undergo reproduction. Next is Soradia. Soradia is just like a lichen spore. Just like you have learned about various types of spores formed by fungi, lichen spores are called Soradia. They are structures like this. Look at this diagram here. They have this component as if it's like this. So this particular component is the fungal component, and on top remains a circular entity which is been bound, as if I'm doing my hands like this and here I'm holding a circular structure. So this circular structure is the algal component. So this is the Soradia, the lichen spore. It has both fungal and algal component, and that's why when it is released and it falls onto a suitable substratum, it will give rise to a new lichen thallus. Alright, so it is the most common way how a lichen would reproduce in favorable condition. Finally, are some economical importance of lichen. There are many, but then I have discussed here a few important ones, like pioneer of rock vegetation. As I have told you, lichens can survive extreme habitats. So in that case, The first plants to grow in a barren piece of land or in a rocky surface would be lichens. That's how, eventually one by one new plants will start, forming in an area, and eventually over hundreds of years maybe that area would turn into a forest. But the first step was taken by lichen. So that's why they are the pioneer of rock vegetation. All right. Next, Rochela. To be specific, Rochela tintoria. Rochela is one species of lichen that's used to make litmus paper. And that's why that's the pH indicator. Okay, that's why it's very important for industrial production of litmus paper. And finally, Cladonia rangiferina and Cetraria islandica, they are used as food. Cladonia rangiferina is called reindeer moss. It is used as a main source of food for reindeers or musk ox in it is used as a main source of food for reindeers or musk ox, etc. in Arctic region, and Cetraria islandica is going to be used as food for humans as well. So that's all regarding lichen as well. So next, let us start with virus and viroids and prions.